Ah, there you are. How's it going? It's Milky Twiddlers here, live from the Clane Triangle, Clane, Robertstown and Sallins, to be precise. I'm sitting right in the middle of it. Now, a lot of yous have been looking for more of the milky goodness I have on offer. And because Dana's not employing me anymore as our manager, I've decided to go into the old podcasting business that yous are all talking about. So this is the Milky Twiddlers big interview podcast. And without further ado, on the end of the telephone line, I got a big star to start off this series with. And here he is himself, the man, the one and only. If a piece of grey flannel had a personality, you'd be it. Hello, Pat Kenny.
My pleasure, even though I'm at home.
A little bit too much information, Pat. Sure, the listeners couldn't care less if you were sitting on the toilet. Now, a little dicky bird told me you're not exactly a fan of my interviewing technique.
Probably, because your mind works at two different speeds. One part of you is involved in the asking of the questions, and the other part of you is monitoring your own performance.
Jesus, don't hold back, Pat. Is it true your father was a cage fighter who once took on the 70s one-hit wonder band, the Wurzels?
In my father's day, he would be inside the enclosure with them, inside their cages. With simply leaning up against him, they could have killed him, but he was the boss.
Now, your career got off to a flying start. I mean, no party was complete without Pat Kenny. In fact, you were very close with Playboy Royal Prince Andrew and his then Mrs. Sarah. I believe you got up to shenanigans with them in the 80s as a guest on a royal visit to India. Didn't one of them like to pretend they were an elephant or something?
The larger of the two, the female, Sarah, would have a saddle strapped on her back, and then you'd have 3 children on each side, and then a child at the front and a child at the back, and my father hanging out of the elephant's ear.
Jesus, talk about cruelty to animals. So 'twas a bit like a circus, Pat?
Yeah, quite circus-like.
Oh, it sounds awful all the same. You'd expect royalty to be better behaved, like.
No, but don't forget they had a certain amount of freedom.
Not so sure on that one, Pat. When you joined News Talk after RTE, you found yourself sharing a building with Today FM, where Ray Darcy and yourself became good friends. But weren't you appalled at how Today FM management treated them at lunchtime? What was the story there, Pat?
When they would deliver him his lunch, wrapped up in a tea towel and carried up in a bag, the elephant would ring the bell.
Would you give it a rest on the elephants, would you? You're obsessed with them. You always sounded, not to be rude like, but a bit posh-like. Is that a misunderstanding, like?
A misunderstanding because of the way I speak, for example, that I come from a place where silver spoons were dished out with the swaddling clothes.
Don't compare yourself to Jesus on this show, Pat. Swaddling clothes is for Jesus. I'll have to discontinue the interview. Look, moving on swiftly, what were you like as a teenager?
I was Jesus.
Pat, you're taking the piss now. I won't tell you again. Any hoodles. Our researcher told me that in your college days you'd go around naked, apart from a pair of natty vulcanised rubber underpants, as part of a protest gang. You know, like Pussy Riot. Only your lot were called, what was it, the Revolting Students?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I got to know Rory Quinn and Una Claffey and all of those people. I wasn't a leader in the Students for Democratic Action or any of that, but certainly we were all protesting. We were the revolting students in those days.
Well, that concludes the first Milky Twiddlers podcast, and I'd like to thank me guest, Pat Kenny. It's been a bit like, I don't know, interviewing a cross between cardboard and a snail on Valium. Anyway, thanks, Pat.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
Do I detect a tone of sarcasm? Anywho, listeners, thanks for listening to the first of the Milky Twiddlers podcasts, and next week it'll be in a safe pair of ears, because I'm going to be interviewing the man himself, probably the most famous man in Ireland, Ryan Tuberty. Lugs Tuberty. I'm only joking. So I'll see you then with Ryan, hopefully. Do I get paid for this fucking thing?